And Andy Moran joins us now for a little bit of a catch up on his take on the club championship so far, and maybe one or two of the things we're hearing coming out of the various camps around the area, both the Leitrim, Mayo, and Longford, all of interest to Leitrim fans over the last probably 4 to 6 weeks, maybe a lot of debate and discussion around the county. But Andy, you're going to have a chat with us about all of the above over the next 10 or 15 minutes or so. You're very welcome back to the program. How's your summer been?
Yeah, Breffney, it's been good. Actually playing club championships this week, would you believe? So I'm going to tug out for a local club here, Balladreen. One last hurrah, Breffney. I'll be 20-minute cameo maybe or something like that at the end of it. But no, looking forward to it. But the summer's been brilliant. Really enjoyed going up and down to Leitrim, watching the games. Myself and Barry and James up to a couple of weeks ago we're floating around watching all the games, and it's been an excellent championship, an excellent league, and it's been great.
We're going to chat about James, I'm sure, later on in the program, who's just recently been announced as part of the Paddy Christie ticket at Longford for the season ahead and maybe the foreseeable future. But in terms of, I suppose, the club championship first and foremost, what's been your first impression of the competition so far?
Yeah, it's been, to be honest with you, it's been excellent. I got to see a good bit of the league, and it was at a good standard anyway. But the championship has I think the format is amazing. I think some clubs have been very unlucky. You look at Mohull's kind of run that they've had over the last couple of weeks, but it's brought the best out of the other teams. Like I was at Mohull v Fina 2 weeks ago. I was at Mohull Ballinamore last week, and two of the games of the highest standard, and it's just great to see these guys kind of pushing through, really playing at the peak of their powers. Like Tom Pryor, Jordy Reynolds last week, absolutely extraordinary performances down in Ballinamore, and just I think the format for a county like Leitrim has worked absolutely perfectly, and I think we've a really exciting run into the end of the championship.
Yeah, I personally wasn't a fan of it in the build-up to it because I think intrinsically it's unfair because Mull get a draw like they've got and others maybe a little bit perceived at least to be easier. We're seeing teams top of the league, on top of the group table that maybe should be mid-table or vice versa, and then the likes of Mull who, let's be honest, they're in the relegation shake-up until next week. What's your own thoughts on that in terms of, is it just the look of the draw, or should it be a little bit more equal and fair, in your opinion?
I think it is the look of the draw. I think the complaint with Leitrim over the last couple of years is you could make a semi-final without doing much. In this regard, like I went down and watched Leitrim Gales v Manor Hamilton the first day. Really, really good, tight game that was really defined in a missed penalty, which went up the pitch and got another. Leitrim Gales, Manor missed the penalty. Leitrim Gales go up the field and get the goal. It was defined kind of in that moment, which was a really tight game as well. And then the other games kind of just took off. I know there's going to be maybe one outlier that might make a semi-final or a quarter-final without winning many games or playing any of the perceived top three, top four. But I think that's the look of the draw. That's the same in our own club championship here in Mayo. My club, Balladreen, have got a really, really tough draw. We've got Ballina.
You would say that anyway, at least.
Well, I'll say it to you. We've got Ballina, Knockmore, and Ahamora, which is insanely tough. Knockmore have won 2 in a row. Ballina are knocking on the door, and Ahamora are one of these sleeping giants that really should be doing better than what they're doing at the minute. So we've got a really kind of tough three groups. So it happens in every kind of county. It's just, I think it'd be a nightmare for a coach. Leitrim would be a nightmare for a coach because you're literally going, you play 1 week, and then you don't know your draw, and then you've maybe 3 days to get ready for your next game. So you can't really prepare for it. But in terms of a player, in terms of excitement, as a supporter, as a neutral myself, coming down watching the games, it's brilliant. And you can see it from the atmosphere in the games. We were leaving Ballinamore last week. The amount of people that were down watching, the people standing outside the gate, sitting on the walls, watching the games, the excitement if Keith took a shot and missed it, or if up the other side Shane Moran took a shot and missed it. Like it was just, the excitement was just brilliant.
Yeah, in terms of the actual football, though, you've been keeping an eye out, I suppose, with a view towards next season in the intercounty scene. Anyone caught your eye yet, or can you publicly tell us who you've been impressed by?
There's been plenty. I would say, Joe, you can start off from guys that haven't maybe come back to us. Aidan Flynn, Oisin Madden, 2 guys who have have performed really well for Leitrim in the past that have. And I'm only mentioning now, I don't want to get caught up and mention the names. I suppose we'll mention names fleetingly here and let nobody take offense if we don't mention your name. But like, Joe, you kind of see them two guys and you see that the athletic ability that they have and the return they have. You go down to Manor Hamilton, you see young McNulty there, Barry McNulty, really exceptional player. Young McKernan last week against Ballymore. And then the guys that we have, the likes of Tom, last week for Ballinamore, Dean, the leader of the team, goes off injured, and Tom kind of leads his team to victory. It was just great to see. And Jordan Reynolds, just another one that just kind of kept his form going right through. Joe, you have Adam Reynolds there playing really well for Carrick. Joe, you've just guys that are doing really, really well at a high level, and it'll be really interesting to see can they bring it forward into a senior setup.
And you've mentioned those names, but you haven't even mentioned the likes of the established crew that have been very impressive in this year's championship. The two O'Rourke's and Fiona. Oisin McLaughlin's kind of put his name in, or put his hand up for selection over the next couple of weeks as well. I'd imagine, as well as Keith Byrne and plenty more who are well known to Leitrim fans.
Yeah, even like, and you've got to say it. I was down watching Fianna v Mohol the week before, and Joe, nearly all the Conor Dwyer, excellent. And then, but you had the old Warriors, the far side. So you had one number 6, a young guy playing really well in Conor Dwyer, but you'd Quinn up the other side, absolutely performing out of his skin up the other side. So the guys aren't giving up their positions easy. It's a lovely little tussle. You see Shane Moore gets a score down for Ballinamore last week, lads. And if you could get it on tape, like it's an Australian rules type catch in at the full forward line. An extraordinary score. You've Keith Keegan playing really well for Mohol in the middle of the field. You know, you've just good performances. Conor Farrell there for Carrick. Joe, guys that mightn't have played much for us this year. Ferg McTague, these guys that mightn't have played much, but then are playing really well. And obviously Pearson, Mark Frau, Willen, David Brown, Donald Casey. These guys are just performing at a real high level.
Yeah, of course, your own situation for next year, that was secured a couple of weeks ago in terms of an announcement from Leitrim GAA. You've extended your time in the hot seat for an extra season at least. Talk to us about that first before we maybe talk about some of the changes that we might see and some of the faces that we might have expected not to see that are coming back in the dugout. But yourself first, happy to have added on an extra year to your deal?
Yeah, I think it was I kind of entered a race that I didn't mean to enter. You know, I didn't want to have anything really to do. The name was kind of being floating around the Mayo setup, and I was just I think I've said this on another podcast where it was, I've been telling these guys from Leitrim, the players, that this could be an 18-month, 2-year, 3-year project, and we need to kind of dig in, lift our weights, do our athletic training, get our skills right over the period. And geez, if I left my name in for a race in Mayo, so I thought it was just very important that I took my name out of there very quickly. We had a quick discussion with the county board, and it was done very, 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 very quickly. As I said, I entered a race that I didn't want to be in, so it was very important that I took myself out of that as quick as I could.
Speaking of that race, and let's talk about Mike for a moment. Obviously, Mike Solon, your deputy, your right-hand man over the last 3 years, both with club and with Leitrim. He didn't take his name out of the race. Is that okay with you? Is he going to be back next year? What's the plan at the moment?
Yeah, he's actually 40 today, Breffney, would you believe? But he's it's his birthday today. So no, Mike didn't take his name out of the race, but like I think it's an agreement that we had. He's kind of a very important person for me and the team and the management team. Great organizer, liaison with the county board, but it was absolutely open at the start when we went in for this, that if something came up and he wanted to go for it, that avenue was open. I think you see it happening in every sport around the world. If you Joe, look at the soccer kind of scene at a high level, you look at the basketball scene, that the assistant or the number 2 goes for the head coach job somewhere else. I think this is a real kind of common thing that happens in football. Maybe not so much, but I was very kind of keen to get Mike back in. Myself and Barry were very kind of keen to get him back in, and we're delighted to say, like, to know that he's coming back to us and willing to go again with Leitrim. I think that's kind of very important. And he went for the Mayo job in good confidence, well wishes from me and Barry, but it was always that if you don't get this, Joe, are you coming back to us? And the agreement was he always was. So we're very happy to say he's coming back in.
I think any GAA fan can understand why he would have done that. Him being a Mayo footballer of the past, having coached teams there as well. How difficult was it for you to do that? To do that though, to take your name out of the hat and to kind of say, no, I'm committed to Leitrim, maybe sometime in the future, but not now.
Yeah, it's a bit different for me. I'm not too far out of the Mayo scene anyway. So yes, some people's goal is to go and manage their own county. And maybe that's mine in the future. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But the way I look at it is, I got a job I really enjoy, really love doing. Have a great working relationship with the county board. Feel we've a really good relationship with the playing staff. Barry McGuiney has been extraordinary to me, as James Clancy was, absolutely extraordinary to me. And I just love the job. So it wasn't a difficult decision for me at all. I probably made the decision last February, March, when I was getting that amount of enjoyment out of it. When I got into this job last year, Breffney, I was there for James Horn's first year. I knew he had a 4-year term. It wasn't a great surprise for me that James did his 4 years and moved on. I think that's the sort of person he is. And yeah, it was no great surprise. So it wasn't really a tough decision for myself at all, to be honest.
In terms of surprises, last week, James Clancy was announced as part of that backroom team in Longford alongside Paddy Christie. Was that a surprise, or were you aware that was possibly coming down the pipeline?
I heard that Paddy was going for the job. I heard that there was a good chance Paddy was going to get that job, as it was last year, 12 months previous. So, and I know James's relationship with Paddy. So for people that don't know, you probably know it better than me. Do you want to explain it there, Breffney?
Well, James would have been a games promotion officer in Dublin for a number of years, both I think in Round Towers, and would have spent a lot of time in Ballymun, which of course is Paddy Christie's club. So they'd know each other quite well. Like, I know you spent a couple of years together in college, but they probably spent longer together. They're probably even closer. I don't know the personal relationships, but I could see how they'd be more recently closer. It makes sense when you know the relationships, but I suppose, how does it work for you?
I listen, it was absolutely a surprise to us, but it was done all in good faith. James was very kind of open about it. We always knew that James wanted to be the head coach in the team. And I think it's really a good thing for Leitrim, really, if I'm being honest with you, because the way things go, I suppose within our setup, I'm probably the coach on the field. I am the coach on the field with Barry and James kind of helping, being the second and third coach on the field. So he just wants to be the head coach on the football field. And to me, going away to Longford, learning his trade, 100% definitely going to bring it back to Leitrim in the future. That's only a win-win for Leitrim. In the short term, listen, we'd have loved to have held on to him. We'd have loved to keep him. But in the long term, I think it's a win-win for Leitrim. And it's done a good confidence. Me and James had the conversation. Absolutely no, there was no hard feelings about it at all. That's the nature of the game. And he had made it completely open to me that this is what he wanted to do in the future. I knew that this is what he wanted to do. So so be it. I tried my best to hold on to him, but listen, it is what the guys want to do. So you just have to let them off. And saying that, Breffney, me and Mike came down here last year without himself and Barry McGuiney. We'd have, we didn't know the players. Yes, of course, you knew the established, the Shane Morans of this world, the Keith Burns of this world. But outside of the very few, we didn't know it. Barry James showed us every footballer through the help of your book, through the help of the games, videos, everything that showed us. So like James Clancy owes me nothing. He most certainly owes Leitrim football nothing. And in the long term, he's going to come back in the future. So it's going to be success either way, I think,
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. In terms of him leaving, I suppose it does create some vacancies. Will it be the same faces that we saw last year, the likes of Dahi McCabe? I know heavily involved in S&C, Shane Bohan, Physio, Alan Loftus, Doctor. Will we see all those faces back this year?
Yeah, so obviously we're going to be looking for another selector. That kind of search starts now. Barry is a week away. Mike is just recently committed again. So we'll be meeting when Barry comes back. And just try to get that search in place and see who's kind of available and what kind of areas we want to hit with that. So there'll be definitely one more added to the management team, I would suggest. All the S&C guys are all back. All them guys are back. There's one change. And again, I have to say, Shane Bowen has stepped away from the physio, and like what we would love to do is that Shane stays not with the senior team obviously, but in Leitrim GAA in some way or form. His knowledge is just incredible, and we, like myself and Alan have already talked about it, Dr. Alan, how can we build a better kind of medical kind of setup moving forward, and Shane has to be part of that in some way or form. But just family commitments, work commitments, little things like that, he just didn't have time. But the work effort, expertise he's given Leitrim long before I came, and for me this year has been brilliant. But no, he's going to step away. Éanna Madden of Mohill is going to come in as the head physio of next year, and then we'll kind of build the medical. Hopefully Fergal stays on, the doctor stays on. But yeah, no, that's going to be the big change really in the backroom team. And when a physio moves on, it is tough for the players, so we just have to kind of respect that process, and hopefully it integrates well into the team.
You had no chance of getting in and maybe to play as a wing forward while he's carrying the physio bag. You'd be.
I'm hearing a lot about this. I'm hearing a lot about this, and I met Éanna for the first time. I met him for the first time on Monday last, and yeah, he's a specimen of a man. So if we need an extra man or something coming on at some stage, we might call upon him. All right.
Yeah, funny you mentioned the book we put together this year. He wasn't at the photo shoot this year or last year. With obviously he lives away and has athletics commitments, but the only photos we could get of him were in athletics gear. So apologies to Éanna if you're watching for how you look in the book, but at least you're in there. I suppose, Andy, in terms of that, then I suppose what's the next couple of weeks hold for you? Club Championship continues as a weekend off this week. You're playing yourself anyway. The intermediates are still in action, though. Have you seen much of that level of competition?
Barry's seen an awful lot of it. Obviously, with his club connections, he's seen an awful lot of it. So he's been keeping an eye on that. Like, even with yourself, we've linked in a lot in terms of, and I've got fellas on the ground, and if I can't be there, you give me a few great kind of resources last weekend, because the games at the same time are really kind of tough. But we've people at all the intermediate games. Every intermediate game this week, we've got somebody at them. So it's going to be, yeah, there's 2 or 3 guys there that we're having a look at. Obviously, Kieran and a couple of the guys we have on our squad anyway. But there's a couple of guys down in Drumshambo, Alan Gales obviously, and these guys that we're looking at. Yeah, so the kind of look goes on.
I suppose in terms of the backroom team, it's more or less the same as we had it this year for next year. What about the playing personnel? I know we might see a few new faces. Are all the old faces still available to you this year?
Yeah, the $1 million question, Breffney. Yeah, we've talked about a couple of the younger fellas coming back. Obviously, in every group, when you go from year 1 to year 2, you'll have some guys coming in and some guys going out. That's just the nature of the some guys that mightn't have been happy with their game time, other guys that you might have to replace with other players that you may feel can do a better job. Of course, that's going to happen, and we'll try to do that. And then there's I suppose the old lurk of emigration and traveling and stuff like that. You've seen with Jack Savage and Kerry during the week. He's going to Dubai for a year. And like, we're not going to be immune to that, Breffney. I think there's a few whispers out there already of a few players. That's going to happen. Guys have sat on visas now for 2, maybe 3 years. And I think at the end of the club championship, you're going to see 1 or 2. And that's fine. What we'll do as a group is we've invested in an app where people can stay on the S&C kind of programs. They'll go away, do that, and hopefully come back in 2024 and be available and be in good enough shape to play for Leitrim. That's the key. You can't be stopping young fellas from going exploring the dreams. Yes, we pitch the Leitrim idea and show it to them and say what we can do, but at the end of the day, work, life, careers have to they've been put on hold for maybe 2 years. So 1 or 2 are going to go. We're aware of 1 or 2. Hopefully we can keep the rest of the boys, but we'll wait and see.
Excellent. Well, listen, and we'll keep our eyes peeled for squad announcements later in the year ahead of next season's FBD League and National Football League, of course, as well. Andy, thanks for popping in and telling us all about where Leitrim, the county side, is at this stage of the season. I know there's plenty more of the club action where players can put their hand up for selection. Interesting to see who does that over the coming weeks. So listen, thanks for popping in and have a nice.
Thanks, Breffney. Appreciate it.